Good afternoon and welcome to the fourth webinar in our How to Fix Any Project series. This is pillar number 4, requirements and testing, the two phases that kill projects and what to do about them. Let us jump into it. My name is Katrina McCullough. I am the founder and CEO of McCullough Management. We are a digital and software project management consulting firm. I am the project whisperer. I've worked on over 100 projects, over 250 million in project budgets. I have almost 20 years of project leadership experience, and we specialize in project consulting, PMO setup, project staffing and training. But what we do best is we fix any project. I've spent my life going into projects that had failed or were failing, and took them all across the finish line. And one of the key traits, one of the aspects of how I run project management is based on the fact that I actually really like people. And because I really like people, I have a good understanding of people. If you don't really like or understand people, this is a hard business to be in, because everything that we do is in support of people, whether it's doing their job more effectively or selling them a product they need or growing their business. That's what we do. We're in people support. So, how to fix any project. If you want to fix a project, you have to have a very clear understanding of how good projects are actually run start to finish. So this is our framework. We have already done webinars on the first 3, so obviously you need to have the right team of people, the right people doing the right jobs. I have seen the right team. If you have the right team of people in place, you can overcome deficiencies in all the remaining pillars. That is how important the team is. And then culture. People say, I want a culture of trust or respect or transparency. Those are ingredients. What you really want is a culture of momentum, innovation, fun. And that is what we offer to our clients. The invisible structures are around all those ongoing mechanisms and projects that keep the gears going, your governance, your cadence, your communication among the project team, your decision making, where to put your focus, prioritization. It's like the oil in the gears that you don't see, but you know when it's gone. And then, of course, requirements and testing we're talking about today, and change management. There are thousands of webinars and conferences and, whole methodologies on change management. I'm ProSci certified myself. I love change management. I think there's ways to make it better on projects. So the next webinar coming up is what change management does well and how to make it better in project management. All right. 55 to 75% of ERP implementations fail. And the leading cause of failures, we're talking about 2 of them today, one of them the next one, inadequate requirements or skipped or rushed testing. I'm going to say requirements is probably the bulk of this, because once you build a system, if it's not built to do the job it needs to do for the people it needs to do it for, testing doesn't even, all you're doing is testing inaccurate functionality. It is so important to do requirements correctly, thoroughly, adequately, with good quality. Give that phase the time that it requires. Okay, so let's talk about requirements and testing today. Here's what we're going to be going over. Requirements. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? We'll tell you why it's so hard. 10 rules for requirements gathering. Ways to make it easier. Ways to shift your expectations. Testing, obstacles, confusion, and fatigue. People get exhausted. Testing, the 2 things. These are the 2 places where I feel like you can make the best benefit for testing, and that is testing labs and managing change requests. Now, it's not change management. That's like scope change requests. And then we'll end it with little expectations and human nature, really level setting your expectations, and we'll finish it off with some Q&A. So let's jump into it. one of the things that I've said is one of the most important traits of every good project manager and business systems analyst is an understanding of and a respect for human nature. This is critical in training as well, of course. And so what are some of those key traits of human nature and how that might affect requirements gathering? Number one, people are overwhelmed and tuned out. Now, this does not apply to your project team. If you're the business systems analyst, if you're the training manager, if you're the project manager, you might be overwhelmed and tuned out, but you do need to show up for this project. If you are the HR analyst, if you are the accountant, if you are the director of marketing, if you are someone who needs to, who has other work that they are doing and then now also needs to come to sit on this project, it is going to be very hard to get their attention. And it's going to be very hard to make that not, sorry, I'm just reading a chat. It's going to make it very hard. You're probably not going to get them out of overwhelm and tune out for the most part. You're going to have to find ways to supplement that and have respect for the fact that that's just where they are. People are afraid of exposure. You think that people would like to talk about what they do. Oftentimes they don't. Now, if they're the ones who are asking for this change, asking for a modernization of a website, asking for a modernization of software, they're probably more excited to talk about the things that they've been struggling with and what they want in the future. If they're not, it's very hard to show up and talk about what you do every day because you might be exposed for having inefficient processes. You might be exposed for maybe not doing things the best way that you can. Your imposter syndrome might flare up for that. You're afraid this is going to impact your job. You're afraid this could make it so you lose your job. People are more reactive than proactive. People are not going to go out of their way to get everything that you need for requirements gathering, all the existing training materials, user guides, policies, procedures. You are going to have to ask them for that. And then oftentimes what they will do is they will give you exactly what you asked for. So if you ask for X, they will give you X. And then if you say, well, XYZ might have been helpful, what are they going to say? Oh, you didn't ask me for that. I'm sorry, you asked me for X, I gave you X. So we need to be thinking proactively to supplement for that. They're not going to be reading agendas. They're very rarely going to come to meetings prepared unless you specifically reach out to them and tell them how to prepare for a meeting. And that's our job. That's job security. That's how we get paid the big bucks. We have to meet people where they are. We are rarely going to make these not be true. And that's okay. We just have to meet people where they are. And we will build that trust. And we will build, and from that, and we'll walk through this now, how you're going to get those requirements out of people, out of how to get them on the other side of this. So I use this analogy right now. Imagine that your project is a jar, and your project infrastructure, your tools, your templates, that's sand. And then the people are marbles. If you start your project with tools and templates and an infrastructure, you're going to fill your jar with sand. And then when you go to put the marbles in it, they're not going to fit. It's important to know who the people that you are working with first. It is important to have an understanding of who's on your project, what they're good at, where there may be gaps, how they can show up, what else they're working on. Because you want to fill your marble jar with the marbles first, and then your infrastructure and your tools and your templates, you pour the sand in, they'll fit in and around the marbles. Those should be used in support of the people you have on your projects. Now, we know what best practices are. We know what good tools and templates there are, but there are so many to choose from. You have to pick the ones that are right for the people on your project. And you have to have an understanding of how the people on your project might need you to be showing up for them. Okay, so here are the 6 truths about why requirements gathering is so hard. Number 1, people know how to do their job much better than they know how to describe their job. And why? Because they're non-linear thinkers. Systems are very linear. It starts, there's a process, it completes. People are a little more like pinballs in a pinball machine. So a system might go start, do some work, complete, right? This is what a person might look like. And I did have AI help me design this. So some of these lines don't exactly go where they should. This is a nod to the family circus for any of those who are my age or older. But you're going to start the process. You're going to go get some coffee. You might have to go over here, get a clarification. Something's not quite working, so you're going to get an exception. Meanwhile, there's a meeting. There might be 2 meetings. There might be 3 meetings that day. And then you have some questions about funding. You're going to go get lunch. You're going to either sit in your car and question your life choices or go out to lunch with your friends. You're going to need some help getting something manually fixed. You're going to get approval. And then finally, you're going to conclude the process. You're going to submit it on. And you're doing this, if you're a business user, subject matter experts that we have here, you're going to be doing this for a lot of different processes, not just one. So when someone asks you, great, now walk me through the process start to finish, it's hard. It's hard to get your brain to think in step 1, step 2, step 3, when that's not how you operate on a daily basis. So we have to meet people there and we have to help them through that. And again, we'll talk about overwhelm, but people will often say, well, you didn't tell me how to prepare. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And what are they ultimately saying? I'm afraid of looking dumb. And what's funny to me is that people will actually do nothing as opposed to trying to do something that they might get wrong. Blind spots. This one's huge. Of course that's a requirement. So there's that great story of asking kids how to describe making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the kid will say, grab the peanut butter and put it on the bread. So you take a piece of bread and you stick the jar on top of the bread. And the kid laughs and goes, no, that's not what I meant. You have to open the lid and take out take the knife and take the peanut butter out. Walk through the process step by step. Same thing for here. Systems will not make leaps in understanding on your behalf unless they're specifically designed to do so. If they're going to be developed, if they're going to be configured, they have to be step by step. But the people doing the work will think, well, of course it's a requirement. It's like a mime who walks in the door and never closes it, or turns on the water, or gets a drink and never turns it off. You need to tell the system every single step along the way. And this is huge for me, please do not rely on your end users or your business users to do a lot of the documentation. Number 1, that goes back to them already being overwhelmed and already having other jobs they need to do. Number 2, sometimes they don't know how to document the way that a system needs to be documented. They don't understand it. They're going to have misunderstandings. Your project's going to get delayed. Your deliverables are going to get delayed. It's going to be incomplete because they'll start cutting corners, or it's going to be inaccurate because they'll start making assumptions on what things mean. And then what you're going to come down to is misunderstood requirements when you get to the build and testing. And one of the hardest parts when you're testing software and someone logs a defect and the developer or the person who configured it said, well, it says this. And the person who wrote the requirement says, well, it says that, but that's not exactly what I meant. And now you get kind of in that tug of war that he said, she said. So you want to have someone who really has a very clear understanding of project documentation to actually be writing your documents for you. And number 6, and this one's my favorite, people will be confidently wrong. And I have seen this quite a bit recently, and I've seen this in 2 specific use cases. Number 1, executives or managers who are just that removed from the day-to-day operation, from the boots on the ground, from the people doing the work. I have seen them, sometimes it's a mild misunderstanding. Oh, that's not quite how the process works. Sometimes it's blatantly inaccurate on what people are actually doing. And the second use case for this is someone who's speaking on behalf of a business process they don't own. So maybe I'm in accounting and I'm sitting in an HR and I might talk about something because I think I have an understanding of how it works. And it's funny to me because all of us who work on projects, we know the impact, the downstream impact in the project of giving misinformation. But I think sometimes our business users, our subject matter experts, they may not actually understand that someone's going to go build that now. And how important it is to not give information that you don't have complete ownership of and a step-by-step understanding of. 2 very easy ways to mitigate this. Number 1, ask 2 questions. Who is the business process owner? And who is the person who does this work on the day-to-day? Because sometimes the business process owner is still just a little too high level. Who does this? Who does this on the day-to-day? I cannot tell you how many times when we're doing a current state inventory requirements gathering, how managers in the room will lean back and go, I actually had no idea you guys were doing that. There might be redundancies. There might be, it's amazing how much gets done without everyone having an understanding of that. And number 2, make sure the right people are in the room. So you ask, who's the business process owner? Who's the person that needs to do the work? If they're not in the room when you're doing that specific business process requirement gathering, reschedule it. Don't have it. You're going to have to shift the project plan accordingly. Don't have it. You can walk away with information that will send you down the wrong road. And now going back to that executive who gave you the misinformation, obviously we want to be sensitive to that. So where that comes in really handy is often that's how it should work. When they give you blatant misinformation, sometimes that's because they believe that's how it should work. So it's very easy to couch that in, well, we actually met with the person. This is how the process actually works. But we agree with you, it should work more that way. So as we capture future requirements, we're taking what you said into account for that. And you're working with those high-level managers or those executives in more of the strategic vision of how you want the software to work in the future. So trust, but always verify. All right. I got some good questions coming. Okay, these are fun. I'll save some of these for the end. Yep. Any one tip you'd give your younger self I'm going to take one question right now, dealing with tricky stakeholders? That's a great question, James. Thanks for asking that. What people want more than anything else is to be validated and to be seen. One of the easiest ways to get a tricky stakeholder to start really working with you and collaborating with you is to acknowledge the work that they've done. To have an understanding yourself of where you might see gaps in their, maybe they, and the gaps are pretty easy. They don't understand, they have a misunderstanding of what's expected of them. They're constantly delayed in getting you the deliverables back. And oftentimes that comes from, of course, being overwhelmed or not having understanding. In the next slides, I actually will show you a little bit how you can bridge those gaps. But it's really figuring out how you can supplement the gaps that your stakeholders might have, but in a way that's customer service oriented, not, gosh, you're not very good at this, let me help you fix it. In a way that's like, wow, you've got so much going on. Let me come and help you do these things. Let's work together in some meetings and get this done. Let me take some of the brunt of this work on your behalf. And doing it in support of. So that is a perfect segue into this here. Oh, this is an actual quote. So you're never going to make requirements gathering fun. You're never going to make requirements gathering a joyful process. I guess I should never say never. It's possible. But you should not use the fact that requirements gathering was not fun as a metric that it succeeded or failed. The goal is just to make it not suck. You can make the process suck a little bit less. And this is a direct quote. We did an 18 months requirements gathering for a government institution here in Long Beach. And we had 10 departments, 150 subject matter experts, 3,500 requirements. And at the end of it, we were having a celebration. And one of the managers said, you and your team really made this process not suck. And I thought that was a fantastic compliment and metric. So the goal is just to make it a little bit easier while also making it incredibly thorough. Okay, so requirements gathering. 10 rules for requirements gathering. Here we go. Before you get started, please have a dedicated business systems analyst aligned with your business process owner or your end user, your client, whoever that is. If it's a smaller project, it can be a project manager. I used to do both. I actually started as a business systems analyst when I started my career in IT. And I moved into project management, so sometimes I can wear both hats. But there is an incredible amount of documentation that has to be done. There has to be utterly granular details. It is tedious work to do. And when it is done well, it is one of the number one success factors on a project. So please, and think of it as like the three-legged race. You've got your business owner, your subject matter expert, and your business systems analyst, right? My hand keeps going up. Sorry about that. And they're together in a, they put their foot in the sack together. They're running together. They need to be paired together. The business owner understands how the process works now, the policies, the procedures, the laws, the rules, the guidelines. The business systems analyst maps it to how software works and helps and has an understanding of how modernized software can do the same workflows. Establish guiding principles. So do it for participation, how you want people to show up, what your expectations of them are, but also for the kinds of requirements that you're going to be writing. So for example, I work in government institutions, lots of paper in government institutions. One of our guiding principles was we're going to go paperless. So where we used to collect a PDF form or a handwritten form, that's now going to be in the system. Where we used to print something and PDF it and email it, now it's going to send notifications through the system. So as we're writing requirements, if end users want to advocate for a certain process that is in opposition of the guiding principles, we can hold them to that. So we can course correct on that. And then, and this is so important, train your business owners, your clients, your stakeholders on what being in the requirements gathering phase is like. What is it going to be like? How is it going to work? Why is it important? How are you supporting them? How do they need to show up? How are the meetings going to be run? And often it's a mindset shift. They've worked in departments for years. They have a department mindset. You need to put them into a project mindset. How fast it moves, how the waterfall or the agile component of it, how all the dependencies and how critical it is that they show up and how you're going to support them in doing so. And that was one of the things that came out of some lessons learned for us, is people kept showing up to requirements gathering saying, I had literally no idea what to expect. There we go. I'm trying to lower my own hand. Okay. So that's before you get started. Now we're going to jump into it. Working sessions. Oh my goodness. Please have working sessions. And that means that you're actually doing real work in a meeting in real time on a screen. You're asking your end users to show their process, show their training material, show their screen. And as you're capturing the requirements, you're showing it on a screen. You're writing documents together in a meeting. You're writing requirements together in a meeting. You're going through workflows together in a meeting. Now, obviously, the business systems analyst who has a lot of that work to do is going to go do that behind the scenes. But the bulk of the work you want your end users to do, your business process owners, your stakeholders, your clients, do it with them together in a meeting. It will go so much faster. It will be so much more effective. You'll be able to ensure that you're aligned. You'll be able to check for understanding when you're capturing, both on the side of the project team and on the business process owner side. It actually makes things, even though it seems longer because you have to schedule all these meetings, it makes things actually go faster and more effectively. So you want to create that meeting cadence for that. Maybe it's 2 times a week for 90 minutes. Maybe it's 3 times a week for an hour. We've also done it where we were falling behind, and so we just scheduled a week of meetings. And we scheduled 3 hours every morning to meet, and then 3 hours in the afternoon. The internal team, cleaned everything up, made changes, and then boom, the next day, we did it over again. But we did not ask our end users to go do a lot of work outside of meetings, because what we found is that they made assumptions, they didn't get it done, they didn't understand, they filled it in inaccurately. It's so much cleaner to do it together. And then create that framework for capturing step-by-step processes. So what I mean by that is you need to ask the questions, and I actually like to have them on the screen. you need to ask the questions. How does this process start? Who starts it? What do they do to start it? How do you know the process has started? What notification do you get? What do you get? What do you do with what you get? Who needs to approve it? Are there different flows that could go on? And for each flow, when does it end? How do you know it ends? Who else needs to know it ends and how? And what new process might be triggered by the fact that this one has concluded? That is the level of detail that you need to get out of your end users, your business process owners. You need to guide them through that. Again, doing that in working sessions. So as you're writing it on the screen and they're correcting you in real time. And once that's done, shadow your end users. I cannot emphasize this enough. And there are two truths to this. Number one, shadow your end users, but do it after you've captured the step-by-step process. So now you as the business systems analyst or the project manager, you have context for the process that you've captured. And now you're actually watching them do it in real time. Every single time we did this, the team came back and they were like, oh my gosh, I have such a better understanding. There were so many things that she left out in the step-by-step process. I have so much more materials now. It turns out he or she had tons of materials for this now. And if you do it after you do the step-by-step process, now you're filling in gaps. And then before you go and write all the detailed requirements, map out that future state in a diagram, because it is so much cleaner for people to understand what they're agreeing or not agreeing to in a workflow. So you map out a workflow in a working session. You're working through it with them together. Don't send it to them and ask them to comment on it. I guarantee you they will misunderstand what you meant by certain things, which is good because then you can learn how to rewrite it. If they misunderstand it, someone else might misunderstand it. So you want to make sure you're going through and you're tailoring it. Then once that's approved, you can then write all the requirements. And then once you write the requirements, you're going to prioritize them. And you're going to do that in working sessions, again, because it is just so much cleaner to talk about it as opposed to giving it to someone, having them weight it, get it back, review the weightings, just do it together in meetings. And I don't like 1 through 5 or 1 through 3 or 1 through 10. I used to. Now I actually like words. So critical, very important, important, somewhat important, not important. That's an easy one to do. Critical meaning we simply couldn't use the system. And sometimes there's a lot of pushback and they can't all be critical. Well, okay. But if it's payroll, if it's HR, you're going to have a lot of critical requirements, deal breakers, things, you couldn't use the system without it. That's okay. And also, some of the critical items are like, if your software doesn't have this, are you really in the right business? So it's okay to have the critical and the very important items. And then the understanding behind them. Are these federal or state laws? Are these policies? They are policies. We have so many policies that are based on the technology we had at the time or the way that we were structured at the time that maybe aren't as valid now. And what's up for grab are processes. If this is just an existing process, those are all open for change when you're doing your future state and your modernization. And that's part of that training that you're going to be doing with your end users and your business and your stakeholders from the beginning. Now, if you're looking at this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's just going to take a really long time. Yes, it is going to take a really long time. It is a longer process, but it makes the rest of it go so much smoother and so much faster if you've actually done this part well. And then the last two are how we make it fun. So surveys and feedback, do not skip surveys. If you have a long if your requirements gathering is a week or two, then maybe you don't have to have a survey for it, although it's always good to do lessons learned afterwards. If you're having ongoing requirements gathering sessions, please survey your people and ask how it's going for them. And I ask 4 questions. Number 1, just overall satisfaction with the requirements gathering process. Do I feel like I'm being heard and understood? Do I have an understanding of how I'm contributing to the overall process? And how excited am I for this new software? Those are the 4 questions I ask, in a Likert scale. And then we do open-ended questions. And we will shift our requirements gathering process along the way based on the feedback that we're getting. And we will do it by department. If some department needs us to go faster, if some department needs us to go slower, if some department needs more training, needs more ramp up, we can push in and out as needed because we can be that flexible and adaptable. And then, and I'm giving a nod to Debbie on this one, gamification and celebrations. Do not skip this on large projects. Gamification is huge. People are so competitive over the smallest things. We did one where we said we would give a pizza party to the department who had the highest per capita survey response. And we got more surveys than we'd ever gotten before, and one department got a pizza party because of that. After we get through with requirements gathering, we'll do trivia, department by department or business process by, for all the subject matter experts that are there to see if they really remember what it is that we have done. Or we'll do trivia on the project as a whole. And then, of course, celebrations. And I mean, we like to celebrate. So we finished 3 months of requirements gathering on just the recruitment process, and we had champagne flutes filled with Martinellis, because it's a government institution, and treats and music. And then we do superlative awards. So asker of best questions, who brings the best treats, whatever it is. People love that, and it makes it more fun. And you do that throughout the process. All right. And then I did want to touch quickly on, so if you have your business systems analysts who are helping to do that work, you as the project manager, these are a few things that you need to be doing along the way to help that process. Number one, please make sure that all your business systems analysts are using a consistent process. You need to create a framework. You as an organization create the framework, the tools, the templates, the methodologies, and everyone should stick to that. It's so much better for your end users, especially if they sit in multiple meetings and they're getting different experiences with those different system analysts. Number two, please ensure that your folks are talking to each other in between client or end user meetings. We've had it recently where we have had different business systems analysts actually recommending totally opposite business functionality in the new system. They did not align beforehand. So make sure that you are creating the environment where business systems analysts are sharing what's been coming up in meetings, what they're recommending. Please QC all documentation prior to review. I cannot stress this enough. There's lots of leftover track changes, comments that haven't been resolved, things that needed to be added that weren't added. Please make sure that you do your own working session with your team before it goes to the end user. That's going to make that process go much quicker. Ensure all meetings are reviewed, agendas are posted, and the appropriate stakeholders and SMEs are invited and have accepted and can attend. So we do every Friday or every Monday because we have those working sessions already booked on calendars. And the way we've chosen to do it is we've only invited the business process owner, and then every week we sit with them and determine, based on what we're going to be going over, who else should be added to the invite. You can also do it where you invite everyone and then you uninvite them if they're not needed for that particular business process review. There's very clear agendas. We know exactly what's needed ahead of time. We know exactly what decisions are going to be made or deliverables or milestones are coming up. And then we'll actually send emails to other people as well. Hey, don't forget you've been invited to this meeting. Please make sure you bring the following with you. We're not relying on them to read the agenda in the calendar invite, because that goes back to human nature. They won't. And then please conduct lessons learned regularly. That goes to the surveys, but also it doesn't have to be based on the surveys. Every couple months, sit down. If you get through a process, sit down and talk about, was that as seamless as it could have been? Was it harder? Were there obstacles? Were there gaps? How could we be doing that better? So that you are continuously refining your process as you go along. All right, I am going to stop now and look at yes, thank you. So I love this question, and forgive me for pronouncing your name, Mubashar. Katrina, after 20 years, do clients still hit you with, oh, we forgot this stuff? Or are you unshockable now? I am unshockable. I am no longer shocked by anything. That is different than being frustrated. I can still be frustrated by it, but not shocked by it. I have come to expect it, and oh yeah, we're going to talk about last minute requests. I have come to expect it, and I have come to and I know how to I know better how to be proactive with it. I now know how much work me and my team have to do ahead of time because clients are going to forget, because they're going to have a misunderstanding. I rarely send an email that has a lot of information or documentation in it anymore without also making it a quick meeting. And often what I will do, if I have a very long email that has like step-by-step instructions in it, I'll have it written and not sent. And then I will have a quick 20-minute meeting with the people who are going to be receiving it. I will walk them through it, and then I will send it, because people are not going to read and they're going to throw up their hands. And I have a slide that talks about that as well. All right. So artifacts and deliverables. I would like to couch this in saying I am probably medium polished with my artifacts and my tools and my templates. I have seen incredibly polished documentation out there. There is so much out there for you to choose from. There are so many, you can use AI now for it. We have ourselves. So I like to keep it incredibly simple. Because I find sometimes the more heavy our documentation and our workflows, the more we're managing our project infrastructure than we are managing our project. And I have worked on incredible projects with Word and Excel and MS Project, and we have knocked projects out of the park. Obviously, if you're doing a major ERP with 3,500 requirements, you want something a little more polished and a little more thorough. So we developed a couple different kinds. We developed an intake pre-work. So we asked people to fill in all their processes, and then it saved over to another, in an Excel workbook, and it saved over to another one. And from there, we asked them to fill in as much as they could. But then again, we did the bulk of it in working sessions. We did a future state processing where we had business process, sub-process, task, and then steps. And then the systems that did it, the people that did it, and that was really easy for us to map out into future state diagrams. While we were doing it, we were ideating on how we wanted it to work in the future. So an example of that would be if you have recruitment software, recruitment is the business process, applications would be the sub-process, tasks would be filling in and submitting the application, and all the steps are everything that they have to do that. We don't need separate lines for each individual step of filling in an application, unless, and our rules for this were, it touched a new system, a new person did it. Those I think were the big two. If it touched a new system or a new person did it, or it took you to a completely separate screen, those would get their own task items. And then our final requirements. Now we made a mistake and put those into Word documents. I'm a big fan when you're just doing requirements. When you get into design, obviously you might want to use Word or other tools for that. Keep it in Excel, because Excel is so sortable and trackable and filterable. So this is what that intake process was. And again, all we did is we asked our end users to make a list of the processes, and then it's saved over here. You can see employee request and accommodation. Down here, require employee request and accommodation. They filled in main objective, who starts the process, and then they started to peter out with it. We met them. How do you start it? What do you receive? What do you do with what you receive? Are there workflow options? What's the final output? How does this need to be routed for approval? So we walk them through that. Now, I will tell you, this is tedious. This is an incredibly tedious process to work through. And over time, people just got better at being able to do it. So we were able to use more of this. This is our current state processing. And you can see we've tagged things in here for the future. So this allows us, as we're capturing the current state, if someone says, oh my gosh, do you know how I really want it to work in the future? We don't have to go to a separate document for that. We can capture that right here. So then when we build our future state requirements, all we do is filter for future state while also being able to go back and review why in the current state. And again, we have the department owner, the frequency, when it happens, so we're mapping out the whole calendar of when all this needs to happen. And then this is what our final requirements look like. So I advocate for always having a workflow diagram done. And then the system capabilities were very simple. This was meant for an RFP. So this could go to RFP or it could go straight to design. Now you're going to take all of this and you're going to create, your business requirements document or your functional design document. From there, your technical design document. And I'm not going into design today, but the same mindsets that you're using for requirements gathering go into the design as well. This is tedious. Look how many lines we have. We're at 3,100 lines on this. There's so much information that we captured in this. It was so detailed and it was so good. And every single one of those requirements were officially signed off on by the business owner who was in charge of them with a thorough understanding of why it was needed and how it was going to be used in the system. All right, I'm going to check here for the time because I left my phone in another room. So I need to... All right. How fast can I talk? Let's go through testing. Everyone knows this. It is so much more expensive to fix an issue in production or in UAT than it is to fix it as you go along. Testing is so important. And one of the best ways one of the ways to make testing better is that requirements gathering and those design. Because then you're just focusing on bugs. You're not focusing on missed or misunderstood requirements. Again, when it comes to testing and we're talking about human nature, we have a couple more factors. People are very uncomfortable with confusion, and testing is very confusing because you don't know if what you're testing is a bug. Is it something you did wrong? Did you misunderstand? People get very uncomfortable with this. People will let any obstacle become a blocker. I myself have done this. There was an Office 365 testing that I was supposed to do. They sent me a link. They sent me instructions. They said, do it by a certain date. I put it to the bottom of my queue. I waited all the way till the due date. And then I went to log in. My login didn't work. I sent an email. It went to the bottom of the queue. That is just human nature. Any single obstacle, people will throw their hands up and say, okay, no, thank you. So again, we're going to meet people where they are. So here are the 5 pitfalls of testing. Do not wait until UAT to have your end users test the system. Please do not wait for that. Please designate a few people to come in early and do testing. Please do not have people test in silos or solo. People are bad at testing. They're not good at testing. And we don't need them to be good at testing all the time. If they're going to come in and do this one product, we don't have to spend a lot of time training them on testing. And I will tell you why. You do not have to write overly detailed test scripts. Please do not make test scripts so hard for your end users that it takes longer to read the test script than it does to actually execute the test. Do not have your users send defects directly to the developers or the people who are doing the configurations. Please, please, please have someone who triages them, have someone collect those bugs and write them in a way that can be used, that can be read very quickly and understood by your developers. And this goes to one of the questions that was asked, be prepared for change requests. If you have no threshold for change when you get to testing, then you have not done this long enough, because there are going to be change requests that come out when people test the system. So here is the script framework for testing excellence. Simple test scripts, a process for managing your change requests, a really good repository or script library. I use Excel spreadsheets sometimes, not on big projects. On big projects, they're going to go into some kind of database, whether it's Jira, ServiceNow has a test script library, SharePoint, you can create, the lists on that. You do not want to be sending Excel spreadsheets back and forth. If it's a simple one, Excel spreadsheets are fine. Issues are triaged daily. You have a single point of contact who is in charge of defects or bugs that are logged, enhancement requests that are logged. And either in the morning, in the afternoon, or both, you're having those like scrum meetings, and all you're doing is triaging defects. You can't do this once a week. You cannot do this once a week in your system integration or UAT. That has to be done daily. Phased testing. And what this means is bring people in to test at every phase. Have them test with you in unit testing. So even if you don't want your end users coming in the system in the development, that's fine. When you as the developer or the person doing the configurations has gotten it to a certain point, bring that in and demo it for them. Do not wait for system integration testing for your core users to see it for the first time. Do not wait for user acceptance testing. And this one is the most important, testing labs. It is so important, it gets its own slide. Testing labs. Bring everyone in to test together, being led by the business systems analyst or your testing lead or your project manager, whomever can very effectively do it. You want to do it multiple days. You can have a week or two of testing. If it's something simpler, you can have one day and just have it all day. So I've got a story for you. We had a proprietary software that was being built, and it was a stock selection software based on regional weighted portfolios. So we brought metrics in, it recalibrated people's portfolios, and it spit out buy and sell trade information that went to the software that actually did the buy-sell trades. We could not be inaccurate with this. And after months of going back and forth, we had developers in India. Our client was on the East Coast. We were on the West Coast. I said, enough. I went to my boss and I said, I don't care how much it costs. We have to have everyone here. We flew the developers in from India. We flew the client in from the East Coast. We sat together in a room for a week, and it was iterative testing at its finest. It was tweaking the formulas, sending it over, testing them, tweaking the formulas, sending it over, testing them. And I think we went live about 1 month after that week. There were still a few things that we had to finalize after that, but we probably condensed months of this back and forth into 1 week. I cannot stress how important these are. So you have a testing overview, you have a dedicated lead facilitating it, you have your developers, you have your business systems analysts, you have your end users, any stakeholders you want to bring, and you're discussing things in real time. You're tandem testing. So someone's on the screen actually conducting the testing and logging defects while everyone else is testing alongside them. It makes it go so much more effectively, and it makes it go so much faster because you're not wasting your time on issues that are not real issues. You're reviewing them in real time together. Okay, but what if they are real issues? What if you do have change requests that come up? That's going to happen. And here's the analogy I use for this. Writing the requirements, writing the design, that is like writing sheet music. And then everyone comes into test, that's hearing the song for the first time. I'm willing to bet a lot of money every conductor change the sheet music after hearing all the musicians play their instruments for the first time. If you don't have an expectation for that, you have not been doing this long enough. So first we have to categorize them. Is it a defect? Is it a bug? Is it a misunderstood requirement? Because those get tricky. That's the he said, she said. Or is it a missed requirement? So if it's a missed requirement, now we need to discuss that. We need to determine the criticality of this. You can't just tell people, sorry, you missed that requirement. You can't have it. Imagine for those of us who are project managers, if we were using MS Project and MS Project came out and it said, hey, you can no longer, it will no longer cascade down with dates. So if you change a date in the system, you're going to have to go manually change all the other dates. Well, technically it still works. That's a deal breaker. I'm not doing that. Not on a 500-line project plan. No, thank you. That's actually a deal breaker. And what you're going to cause me to do is go use a shadow system. You're going to cause me to either say no or go find some other method of doing this. So we have to have respect for that. We have to have respect for the fact that these folks are going to be using the system to do their day job. So now we have to determine, are we going to change the scope? And how is that going to affect the triple constraint? Are we going to, I strongly recommend adding a little bit of buffer. So the first time that you have your users test, have a very long process before you do the next round of testing. So you can absorb a couple of those. Can you phase them in? Can you do a piece of it now or a piece of it later? Is it at a point where maybe you can put it in a maintenance release after go live? You have to have those conversations with your, leadership team, your steering committee, whoever it is, but you have to have a process built in to take those, put them through a workflow and escalate them. And I promise you, some changes will get in. because they just have to. And sometimes that affects the go live date, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's just enough buffer where you can still do it. The goal is, as I said, the goal is not zero change requests, but effective change request management. And I'm just going to show you one of these. We're at the end here, I promise. I love simple test scripts. So this one actually came from a real life scenario. We were doing, this was actually for HTC's North American website rollout years ago. We were working with the director of marketing and we could not get it. Every time we had a meeting with her, it was like she was seeing the system for the first time. Everything kept changing. And so the technical analyst or technical director actually said, you know what, we're just going to do this. We're just going to say, does it exist? Yes or no. We're going to make this really simple so we can go live. So he whittled everything down to this really simple, almost checklist. And it was so effective that I've used it for every project afterwards. And so if you're looking at this and you're thinking to yourself, these are not really good test scripts. Okay, you're probably right. But I've used them on every project and I have 100% success rate on my projects. This is how simple your test scripts can be. This is how simple your user test scripts can be. Sometimes it's just a checklist. Sometimes you can have a couple of different things that you're advising people to do, but when you're giving them to your end users, you can get away with not having super detailed test scripts because you're in a testing lab. You're testing together. It can be incredibly simple. And then again, I advocate for having a test script library because then you can connect them to your defect tracker, which again, you're triaging daily. And again, I think one of the most important things is that we manage expectations. Are we going to turn our end users into project experts? Or do we want them to stay experts in their space? And we'll be the project experts and meet them where they are. Are we standing in a field waiting for people to catch up and understand how to use all our tools and templates? Or are we shifting them, supplementing, and meeting them where they are? Because ultimately, they're the ones who have to use the system every single day once it goes live. And have we maintained respect for that? Because if we don't have respect for it, we're going to develop resentment for them. And once you start resenting your business folks, your end users, your stakeholders, your clients, that is going to impact how you show up for them. It's going to impact quality. It's going to impact timelines. You have to maintain respect for the people who are going to have to use the system. That doesn't mean you have to like them all. It doesn't mean you're not going to be frustrated, but it means you have to be solution oriented. By the way, when we did this for that HTC person, we did it out of frustration. We did it because we were just done. She saw it as excellent customer service. She loved it. Both things can be true. We can be fed up, and it can also be a great way to show up for our end users. Sometimes the best solutions come out of frustration. Okay. I think we've gone over time, so I apologize, but I am open for questions now. Yes, those simple test scripts are for the users. Yes, absolutely. Oh, I lost my chat. Sorry about that. Okay, so I am going to open up the chat here. All right, so I'm going to go back through the chat and feel free to raise your hand if you want to ask questions in real time here. So what's the weirdest requirement you've ever gotten? And did you actually do it? I'm going to keep that one in the back of my mind as I ask other ones because I actually can't think of a weird request that I've gotten or a weird requirement. Okay, let me think about that one. That's a good question. If you could ban one type of request question forever, what would it be? You know, I think what I would ban is the type of requests that only serve one person. And I've done this on systems before where we built a system specifically to accommodate the way one person did something because it was so important that they use the system that way. Or I also don't like the types of things where people want to add fields that are going to require manual entry every single time they go in there because over time they just won't use them anymore. So the goal is automation as often as possible and to reduce just because you want to tag something a certain way or you want to go back and look at it a certain way. Oftentimes, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, those fields are just empty and no one's using them. Knowing documentation is a skill set. A lot of users don't have it and have never had the opportunity to learn it. And thank you, Alexander. And that goes back, Alex, that goes back to expectations. Do we expect them to learn it on this project? Or do we just want to have a successful go live? And sometimes those are mutually exclusive. All right, we talked about that one. Ever had a request that seemed genius at first and totally blew up the project? Let me think about that one. Because yes, we have. I would say, I'm trying to think of a very specific one, but there's sort of the overarching, the more, and systems are getting better at this, but a while ago this was harder. The more automated you make a system, the simpler you make like a one touch and it does all the things it's supposed to do, the more complicated that is for the developers on the back end, right? So sometimes we tried so hard to make it so easy for the end users in the system that we ended up blowing up and making the code so complicated that we kept getting it wrong and it kept being incredibly difficult to test. So that's where the minimum viable product does come from. Sometimes you cannot do it all on day one. What's the most common mistake that new PM make that makes you low-key cringe? Being afraid of scope changes. Don't be afraid of scope change. Scope change is going to happen on almost every large, complicated project. And you've got the triple constraint to back you up on it. If scope changes, something else has to change with it, unless you've got a built-in buffer time for it. And all you need to do when you do it is, you just let the data speak for you. So why is this needed? What happens if we don't put it in? How long is it going to take? What is it going to affect? Who needs to do it? And often you can build out a few recommendations. We do it now, we phase it in this way, we break it up, or we don't do it, whatever it is, but you provide your sponsors, your stakeholders with recommendations for it. Thank you. Do you have a secret checklist in your head that screams, this project is doomed? Yes. So a lack of communication. Okay, so this is one of the funny things that I've said. If your status meetings are 15 minutes and you're in the heart of it, then your people are not talking to each other. And there are fires burning that nobody is paying attention to. You should be in the thick of things. You should be solving problems on a regular basis. You need to be drawing people out. You cannot allow your people to say, everything's fine. So I ask certain questions like, what's coming up for you as a risk? What are you waiting on? And if people are like, well, I'm not waiting on anything. Really? There is literally nothing preventing you from doing all of the work that you have on your task list right now. And you'll get people who will say, oh, well, okay. Yes, there are a few things. You really want to make sure that you are consistently drawing information out from people, and then you're connecting all those dots for them. So you're bringing in who needs to hear this, who needs to sign off on this, who needs to be a part of this, and you're making sure that there's a lot of collaboration among team members. What's your go-to line when a stakeholder tries to sneak in a last-minute request? Yeah. So my favorite lines are, what would be great? Or, I forgot. So being able to, how do you handle that? Again, it's the change management request. If you're in requirements gathering, add at it. If you're in design, I strongly advocate for not having a fully fleshed out project plan before you've done requirements gathering. It has to be a little bit of a squishy project plan, because until you have all of your requirements finalized and some understanding of how you're going to design it, how are you going to know how long it's going to take to build? And how long it's going to take to test. So those are the times, and that's why you have such an exhaustive requirements gathering process, is because of how important it is. Because of how important it is to get those right the first time. And then if people try to sneak things in, the key phrase there, and I missed this at first, is to sneak things in. There is no sneaking things in. There is a very clear conversation. There is a very clear escalation workflow that it goes through. There is a very clear approval workflow path and an impact, a report about it. There is no sneaking. So that was a good question. And Alex asked, are those simple test scripts for the users? Do you expect a core or more technical team to have their own or more in-depth test scripts? So the developers will often create their own test scripts that they use on projects, and you can leverage those for the end users. I've also worked on projects where they actually did use those kind of simple test scripts to do their own unit testing. Thank you, as Pauline left, thank you. And honestly, every project is different and every person is different. And if it works for your team, then it works, period. So if you need to make them more complicated because people are missing it, then make them, not more complicated, but if you need to make them more in-depth because people need it more in-depth, then make them more in-depth. For your end users, I would keep it as simple as possible. All right, are there any other questions? I know we're over time. I'm not even checking. I tried so hard. Please join us for the next webinar. We'll send out emails to everyone. What change management does well, where it misses the mark, and how it can be done better. From someone who's been doing this for 20 years, and change management became relatively new in the last 10 years and became kind of this added layer to projects. But I think it's critical. I also think it could be integrated a little better than it currently is. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone being here today. We'll be posting this, and I look forward to seeing you guys at the next one.